Good morning. I thought can you see these? Right. I thought I'd do a quick experiment to just kind of clear some things up, and I'm going to use some physical props. I'm going to use these bolts here. I haven't got any nuts, but apparently I am one, which is convenient for an argument that I'm trying to make. But yeah, I'm going to use these bolts to kind of show how experiments are done. So say I have a simple experiment. Say I have a plant and I want to see if the plant does better if it gets watered or if it doesn't get watered. Simple A-B comparison. I have two plants, hopefully from the same seed, the same mother plant, all these things. And I get one plant right there, and I give it water, and I get one plant, and I don't give it water. And say we have an allotted amount of time, and that experiment runs, and then we observe the results. And if we're trying, say we're trying to prove that watering helps plants in a period of time, say over a month, then we can observe those two plants and see which one is doing better. And then we get that's a scientific experiment. Now, I'm gonna come down here. This is a bit easier. Now this is how science works. And of course, anyone who's a bit clever out there will know that the thing that's important about an experiment is to keep the variables down to a minimum. So we want to have these two plants right next to each other. We want to have them in the same conditions. We want to keep as many things the same as we can, except for the one variable that we're testing, which would be in this case whether we're watering them or not. Now let's get a few more things. Right, let's make sure we've got an even amount. So we've got 3, 8. So now let's take this recent health crisis and break that down to a simple experiment. So we have a virus that's been identified. It's causing mayhem. It's doing all these things. It shut down the world. All those measures early on, they're to be debated. It's too hard of an experiment. But let's get down to the experiment in question, which was the vaccine. Now, I'm going to try and show how, unfortunately, the policies we used were just completely unscientific from the beginning. And this is how I'm going to do it with these bolts here. So let's get an even amount. Let's get 4 of these bolts there. Right, that's a nice little group of 4. Let's get another little group here of 4 bolts. And there we have, the numbers are different. We now have 4 of each, but we still have 2 clear groups, right? This is called an A-B, a black and white, 50-50, whatever you want to call it. This is an experiment. This is a valid experiment because we're testing one thing. Now, in this case of this world health crisis, we're testing the benefits of, let's get that better, let's get them nice. We're testing the benefits of a vaccine, a newly developed vaccine, a new style of vaccine. So we can't, to be scientific, we can't just say because it's called a vaccine. It is a new type of treatment. It maybe is filling a similar role to previous vaccines, but this is a new thing. So we need a new experiment. Now, what I want to know is how can we be encouraging this based on the word science, and then at the same time mandating to not to do an actual scientific experiment. Do you know what I mean? Now, this gets weird because we're dealing with a social issue as well. It's a very complicated issue. But it doesn't change the fact that we were always doing an experiment, whether we thought we were doing an experiment or not. There was an experiment taking place. And the only scientific way to actually validly measure that would be to do a 50-50 experiment where we, and so this could have been an option. We could have mandated 50% of the population. We could have done that in a draw. You know what I mean? That gets a bit weird, doesn't it? But some would say that's still a better way to have done it. But we didn't do that. What we did is we threw every scientific piece of, in the bin. We listened to a company that was selling the product in question, who then encouraged the politicians to mandate that, which just is the equivalent of doing this. We threw all the science out the window by force. And this is what we were left with. We were left with an experiment where, by force, a huge amount of people were pushed into this side of the camp. And that's not science. That's not scientific. That is insanity. It's basically, you can see how, imagine this was one person here, and this was an army, and this army was not happy at this person. This person's in a lot of trouble. And that works in lots of different ways and ideologies, and, it's not a fun place to be here. Now, that's not a scientific issue. That's just an observation I've made based on a couple of bolts on the floor. But what I want to do is I want to break down. Let's put two more here just to get these numbers really up. And let's get these back to here. Now, the problem comes when we realise that it doesn't matter what these two here are doing now, because they're basically the placebo portion of the study, right? So they're off here because they're relying on their inbuilt, there we go, that's better, look at that. These two here, because these did not participate, it's not even placebo, they're the variable of not doing anything, right? So these two here are susceptible, they're under the control of basically millions of years of evolution. And that's what they have in their defense, which that's up to you to decide whether millions of years of evolution is up to the mammoth task of fighting off a new novel virus. But anyway, they're just going to be there. Okay? Now this group, which was mandated to receive, some of them, so let's say these ones here, they were just all over it. They were just like, yeah, give me it. Now these ones were like slightly pushed into it. They were like, oh, I better get it. And these ones here were like, oh fuck, I can't go to work if I don't get it. And these ones here were basically peer pressured by the rest of these ones into doing it. And so that's what we're left with, right? Now this, you can see here by this ratio that, again, we're not really doing this scientifically. We've kind of thrown the science textbook out the window, and now we're in some type of weird social, societal, tyrannical situation. But still, we can still find out a lot of science based on this. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's get one more. Let's make it 10 because even numbers are easier to deal with, right? Now, this affected portion here are now under the condition of having had the treatment. Okay? Now, let's just say this one just dies because, I mean, that's 10%, you know, this is obviously, maybe that's 1%, okay? Let's times these all by 10. 1% just dies. Yeah, so that's happened there because sometimes in experiments that happens. Now, what else can we extrapolate from these bolts here? Right. What other variables are going on with a virus that's affecting us? Is there, let me get my train of thought. Is there food and lifestyle and other conditions that this whole group, including these ones, are all susceptible to? Is there this might sound crazy as well because of the what we've been told, but is there an innate response from humans, you know, something in us that we don't even know, something that just happens, something we do, you know, a bit like a dog eating grass or, you know, things like that. Is there anything like that going on? Possibly there's something like that going on. So all of these are now all, they're all under that as well. So how do we extrapolate out whether the virus, whether the treatment was better than the non-treatment? And that's where we get into a really complicated thing scientifically because we stuffed it up. We didn't do a 50-50 trial. We pushed people into an experimental thing. And now we've got a big sloppy mess. We've got too much information. We've got too many variables. We've got too much going on to really see what the results were. And this is the situation that we're in now. Another thing to be aware of, especially to do with health, like one of the most detrimental things to health is stress. Now, everyone was stressed in this. Even this guy, before he died, he was fucking stressed, right? Everyone was stressed. But what happens if this is you and you're looking at this, right, which exists because of force, not because of choice, but because of force, right? And you turn around as your little thing and you're looking at this group here, right? Let's get rid of him so we can just see just this one bloke here, right? And then you've got this whole thing here, this machine of corporate, you know, control telling you that you're trying to kill them all. You know what I mean? So it's your fault. It's your fault that all of this is happening. Somehow, because of these decisions, it's all this fucking nuts, this bolt's fault, right? And this, from speaking to bolts in this situation, this is how they were reporting to have felt. That's stressful. Like that's, you know what I mean? If that was an army and you had an army behind you and you were just a little bolt trying to just go along your little bolt ways, you'd be stressed. You'd be stressed in this position right here. Definitely. You'd definitely be stressed. Now, everyone was stressed, right? But some people decided to, that their stress would be lessened if they joined this thing, this big army here that decided to throw science into a huge pile of fire and burn it and just throw out anything that resembled science and jump on what's basically a marketing ploy. But anyway, let's go back to these two. Let's get two there so we can have a clear example. Now these two, right? This guy decides he wants to just play video games and drink Coca-Cola and eat Hungry Jacks. And this guy randomly just decides that he wants to go like sit in the sun and start walking and trying to disconnect himself from the stress that he's feeling here. And then discovers maybe that once that stress is gone, that he discovers his own innate ability to fight off threats from the environment, which is something that is the reason that is plain to see that does exist in humanity is purely for the fact that we're here. Okay, we're not really all that capable in the evolutionary terms. We're soft, squishy creatures, but we're still here. We don't have big claws or big teeth, but we're still here. And this guy, he's gone off with that. He's used his innate defense abilities that, you could say they were God-given, but let's not talk about God because everyone knows that God isn't scientific. So, yeah. And now, maybe this guy had a bad time, maybe this guy had a bad time. Who the hell knows? But we're back down to something we can measure. So now we're looking at this group and we're going, right, this guy decided to make lifestyle changes, and this guy decided to, go down the devil's path into unhealthy whatever. And then we can look which one did better. Right, cool, okay. Now, because we're not dealing with any additional experimental thing, we can just break that down to a lifestyle choice, and then we can measure their response to the virus and say who did better. And well, it turns out maybe if you're in the sun more, you do better, or maybe if you eat healthier, or maybe if you disconnect from any unusual stress, then you might do better. But who knows? That experiment hasn't been done. I'm just saying if that experiment was done, that's a fairly easy experiment. Now, what we're dealing with here is an illusion of an experiment and a brainwashing based on numbers. It's in the online world, there's a thing called vanity metrics, which is they're indications that don't really contribute to the overall picture. They just make you look good. Now, when you force people to take this experimental procedure, when you threaten their jobs and their security and their reputation and everything else that was threatened to get them into this group, to herd them into this group forcibly, to basically stand behind them with guns and corral them into a big herd group, right? We'll notice again that we're dealing with another variable. We're dealing with a herd of animals, If you herd sheep or cows or anything into a thing, they're going to be stressed. So already they're a stressed unit. This guy might be stressed because he's still eating junk food, and this guy's just wandered off and is looking at the flowers, right? He's looking pretty good. He's looking like you don't really want to be in big herd and you don't really want to be like nihilistically destroying yourself. But anyway, this herd here that was pushed into this situation, and it doesn't have to be with guns, it can be like just with peer pressure and social pressure and all those things. And that's what I saw a lot of during it. I saw a lot of strange pressure that I'd witnessed before, but not in a scale to that extent. And it frightened me, to be honest. Now, every single one of these things, these people, these bolts in this situation, is also dealing with this same thing here, right? So let's break that into two groups, right? They're the junk food gobblers, and they're the rose-smelling sun worshippers, right? Now, we're breaking this up again. Because but now, on top of it, now we've got this experimental procedure. So we're like, now we need to look at it and go, right, how did the experimental procedure go on people that were in a stressful state versus people that were in a more peaceful state? And then we can break that down again to, like, let's go back together. How did the experimental treatment go to people that believed it was going to work and people that were forced into it? Because that's a variable as well. That is the variable that medicine is tested by, believe it or not. That's called the placebo effect. If you believe a thing is going to work, then it is more likely to work. So actually what we can do, and this is where I get to, this is where it gets so weird if you keep going down this train of thought. This portion of people that believed the vaccine was the saving thing, you can weirdly almost just completely disregard. Like if that was a courtroom and you were getting your jury, you can't really test that group because they believe it's going to work. So they're under the effect of placebo, as well as potential benefits of the treatment. So they're a hard group. They're the group that we can't really listen to, unfortunately, in science, because they're skewed towards positive results. And they'll weirdly actually lie to protect that. So they need to be, there's nothing wrong with those people. They just need to be discounted from the experiment. And then we have the magic portion here. Now this is where science really starts to work. This is the portion the magic portion that needs to be asked the questions and documented so that we know how to deal with this situation if it ever happens again. We need to split this group up. This group, not the group that didn't get it, not the group that did get it, that wanted to get it, that wanted everyone to get it, that would have forcibly held you down and jabbed it into your fucking eyeballs. No, they can fucking go to sleep over there for a minute. But this group here, the important group, they were unaffected by placebo. They were unaffected by placebo because they were forced into getting treatment. Forced with guns into getting treatment. Forced with losing their jobs, losing their everything to get treatment, an experimental treatment from a drug company known to fabricate their results. This is the important group, right? It's also easy to get. If I was in government right now and I'd just potentially, at gunpoint forced the population to take an experimental procedure based on the, based on the advertising material of a known corrupt industry, what I would do to redeem myself from any potential, backlash that might come from these decisions is I would put out a call to this group, the group of people who got the vaccine. And it's a simple question. Did you get the vaccine because you thought it would help or because you were forced to get it? Right? And then what we do is we compare this group with this group. That's it. That's what we do. That's how you do science. Because this group are not subject to fanboyism or placebo or anything. This is the courageous group. The people that were forced to do something which I've already shown in the beginning is actually unscientific to begin with. But unless we make this step, we'll fuck it up again and we won't do it properly again if this happens. So this group, there needs to be a national census that goes out to every single, you can basically, hey, did you get the vaccine and you didn't want it? You got it to save your job? You're basically the most courageous people I know. For the majority of my life, I would have been in this camp. I was in specific conditions where thankfully for my own whatever, I was in this camp, and I'm happy. It wasn't easy. It was fucked. It was insane. But let's put that aside. Let's deal with these people here who are, in my opinion, the most courageous people in the pandemic. Why? Because they did something they might not have wanted to do. To protect their family, to provide for their family, to do what real people do, to do what people do that made this country what it is. Now, we need to get information from this group. We need to, a basic, simple question. Do you believe did you get sick? Did you potentially pass it on to anyone else? All the key points that were listed out, the benefits of the fucking bullshit treatment that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this unbiased, but obviously I have some bias. So I'll tone that down a bit. All the key points that were spouted about the product, right? I have a product right now that I haven't been able to ship because of, I've basically had to stop everything. But I feel like based on the examples set by these farmers, I'm well within my rights to take people's money and not provide any of the things that I said I would. Maybe it was just a picture. Can I just send them a picture of what I said I was going to send them? That's what they bought. They bought a picture. I feel like that's what, anyway, let's not go into that. This group, however big this portion is, and my guess is that this portion now, after a little bit of time, is a little bit bigger than what you would think it is. It's potentially huge, and we potentially find that there's been all types of experiments going on within this single experiment, right? So we find out, hey, how many people, after a bit of time, how many people would put themselves in this camp? I wonder, really? We got 2 years, every day, numbers on our screens. How many people were dying? How many people were this? How many people were that? How many people in hospital? How many people affected? How many people on respirators? Every single number you can imagine, right? This is the number I want. I want a national survey of this number. How many people would consider themselves forcibly vaccinated? And then I want experiments and science done on this group. And that's not, dissecting them in a lab. That's asking them questions, right? Let's ask this guy a question. Do you feel like the vaccine did anything? Do you feel like it helped you at all? Yes or no? 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 Do you feel like maybe it didn't help you? Yes or no? 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 Do you feel like the coercive measures taken by the government were rational? Should be repeated? These are questions that need to be answered. This is science. This is how we do science. Trust the science. Trust it. I trust it. That's half the problem. The funniest thing is like getting a slogan used against you when you're actually the fucking only person around you using science is weird. It's very, very weird. It's the strangest thing I've ever experienced in my life. So let's trust the science. This is how you do science, Pfizer. This is how you do it. If you don't do it, we'll do it, right? And then we'll use this information to go forward with whatever else we need to do. After that, we're just going to keep doing science because we trust the science. We just trust it. I trust it. These people trust it. Everybody trusts the science. The only fucking thing we don't trust is you. So let's do some science. Let's do some independent science. We don't need them to do science. Let's put a national call out. And this is where it's going to get really... I've spent a lot of time criticising politicians. I'm not a politician. I can't understand the stress involved in that. I, before this, lived in a very trusting environment where I would have trusted it. You imagine the amount of things going on, and you've got someone from this billion-dollar company telling you to do this thing in key positions, and they did it very cleverly. So it's like, I don't even blame them. But what I'm saying is, despite all the things that might have not been done properly, we can still break it down. We still have an experiment on the table. We can still, and this is an experiment to do with the treatment. This is an experiment to do with the response. There are social experiments that we can continue to do. I can't wait. I'm a part of the control group. You know what I mean? I've got a lot of information. I've documented a lot of my experience being in this control group because I was doing science. I've been very thorough. And I'm sure because we're still in a nice period where it's still fresh in everyone's minds, yet we're kind of out of the bubble of influence that affected everything. This is the perfect time. This is when we can really do science. We've got the CSIRO. We've got some of the best scientists in the world in this country. Let's make this country. Let's use our science. Let's use our scientists to break down what actually happened in this pandemic. There's other things as well. We've got phones. I'm sure there is data, there is movement data, there is all kinds of things where we can get a full 3-dimensional digital version of exactly how the human race, which we are now we just are, how many people tuned into a coronation last night? How many phones filmed it? We are now, whether we like it or not, I'm not saying the king is the leader of the whole world. I'm saying the king, a crowning of a king was seen around the world. We acted as one unit. We acted
as a, you know what I mean? You can kind of start to feel that. Now, we've got phones with GPS, we've got everything, we've got Facebook, we've got social media, we've got all this information. We've actually got too much information. It's overwhelming when you start to break it all down. But what a wonderful opportunity to observe humanity on a global scale that we have right now. And let's not go crazy. Let's just maybe WA, Mark McGowan. This is my suggestion to you. If you want to redeem, any sort of credibility over the next couple of years, which I'm kind of sure you probably do, let's do this science. Let's identify this group, the golden group, right? I personally think this group here should maybe get something like free McDonald's for the rest of their life. Maybe they don't like McDonald's. Who the fuck knows? But let's give them something for their sacrifice, which is what it was. Okay? Like you fucking tested shit. These weren't enlisted defense. These are civilian people that you forcibly did an experiment on. Okay? That doesn't go down well in history. The history books do not look kindly at that. Maybe they'll be more forgiving. And they're a big group as well. I wouldn't want to fucking come across this group in a dark alley or anything like that. And I don't think they're going to go away. I think they're actually just going to get more and more whatever. But let's give them something for their sacrifice, and let's extrapolate the science so we can know better how to deal with this if it ever happens again. Let's say if, because from my observation, 90% of the problems that we encountered during this pandemic were caused by the response and not by the actual virus, right? So when I say if this happens again, I mean the madness, okay? Not a virus. Viruses are going to happen. Pandemics are going to happen. But the word pandemic created a situation here, right? The same as if I said, I saw a vampire. Vampires are real. Or do you know what I mean? Aliens are real and they told me they're going to kill everyone. Whatever it is, those ideas are dangerous. The idea of a pandemic, we've all had it in the back of our heads since I can remember and we can kind of feel it. We're like, yeah, it's going to come. It's going to kill us all. This is what's going to happen. It's a fucking pandemic. That's what caused the problem. It's that, right? Maybe we are going to, let's change the framework on that. We're probably going to deal with viruses coming up in the world. We're probably going to deal with weird things happening. And that could be in millions of different ways, especially with technology going the way it is. So let's stop, creating monsters that are bigger than we can deal with. And let's just deal with the things as we go. And this group, I'm just going to keep saying it. This is the group, the people that were forced to participate in an experimental technology. Let's do some science on this group. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in this morning. Thank you for, I hope this has been enlightening. I hope this has been interesting. If you still think I'm a nut, I haven't got any of them. I've got them somewhere in the back shed and I could screw them on the bolts here, but let's just leave all that for now. But yeah, thank you for watching. And I hope to see some real science being done within this group. This group coming from this group, I stand behind this group with full force because I would have been in this group the majority of my life. And so this group here, I will defend them to the death. And this is the group I want the science done on. I want some rational, scientific data to come from this group, and I want it to be on the TV. I want it to be live streamed on television. Because I love science.